Our dough has been in the fridge for 48 hours. Well, probably not actually 48. People just say 48 when they mean 2 days. So it's probably like 40 hours, 39 hours. 48 hours doesn't mean 2 days, it means 48 hours. Just like porn star, it doesn't mean you're a star anymore, apparently. You shouldn't be able to be called a porn star unless you're actually like at the top tier of...
This really went off the rails.
Today on Panic Pantry, we're making pizza. I learned everything from the beginning from Frank Pinello, my sort of pizza mentor. He hosts the pizza show on Vice and he owns Best Pizza in Williamsburg. So he taught me kind of the base level when I learned from him to help open Prime Pizza here in Los Angeles. Now with, I think, 5 locations? 6? 5. So we're gonna make one of those like kind of classic grandma pies, which is like a crushed tomato sauce with mozzarella. You kind of dollop it around and eat it, and it's great. I also want to make my version inspired by the upside down square pie at L&B's Pepperoni Gardens. And that's just like an old classic New York pizza place where you do the cheese on the bottom and then you lay the sauce and it's kind of a clean sheet atop. The cheese basically protects the dough so it stays sort of nice and light and doesn't get soggy. And then you get this kind of saucy top and you eat it and you get the gooey cheese underneath it, and that's really cool. Then I'll make a spicy pepperoni, which is a cool one, using fresh Calabrian chilies and a criminal amount of pepperoni. I'm kind of making a little bit of my version of a New York style dough. So it's gonna be a little bit nerdy here, but the basic principles of this is we've got flour, we have yeast, we have salt, we have olive oil, and we have some form of sugar, in this case, honey. And there's also gonna be water. The way to think about dough is with hydration percentage. Your flour is 100%. Each ingredient is gonna be a percentage of the flour. If you've got 100 grams of flour and 3 grams of salt, you have a 3% salt percentage. If you've got 100 grams of flour and 60 grams of water, you're doing a 60% hydration dough. So that's what we're doing today, is a 60% hydration dough. I'm gonna be using 1,023 grams of flour, which means that the hydration percentage at 60% will be 614 grams of water, 2.8% salt, 29 grams of salt, 2.5% oil, 26 grams of oil, 0.3% yeast will be 3.1 grams of yeast, 0.7% sugar is, what is that? I forgot what I wrote down. I wrote it down wrong. Hold on. You might be saying, Noah, are you a math wizard? Are there math wizards? And the answer is no. The trick is I use a dough calculator. So I said I want basically a 20-ounce dough ball, which is 567 grams each. I wanted 3 dough balls, and then I put in all the percentages, and it just autofills. Then I have a recipe. And the reason that you would do this, and yes, you can just find a recipe and make it, and it'll be great pizza. But if you want to figure out how to make the pizza that you want to make, it's very useful to keep track of these percentages, and then you can start to modify it based on what you want. You go, oh, you know what, I want it a little more browned. It wasn't browning as much as I wanted to, so you can increase the sugar, which caramelizes more and makes it browner. If you said, oh, it was a little dry, a little stiff as a dough, I want it to be more relaxed and loose, increase the hydration. 60 is kind of where I want to be today for our pan pizza. I'm using instant dry yeast, which is the one you can buy at the grocery store. For active dry yeast, you want to activate the yeast. So you want water that's like 105 degrees or so. Honey is a pain in the ass to measure. So I'm gonna do the honey first in the bowl, then we'll measure out the water in a container and then pour it in. We are looking for 7 grams of honey. There you go. 7 grams of honey. We're looking for 614 grams of water at about 105 degrees-ish. And then we just pour this right in. And now we're gonna add in our yeast. We're gonna let this sit for about 5 to 10 minutes until it gets nice and foamy. All right, so this is now getting nice and yeasty. We've got our oil, we've got our yeast, we've got our honey, and now we're just gonna add our flour. The most common one to use is like bread flour. I happen to have some really good flours on hand, so I'm using a half and half mixture, Artisan Baker's Craft Plus, and half high mountain flour. So it's kind of like a bread flour and an all-purpose, but kind of optimized for this kind of stuff. So we're gonna do like a kind of light mixing, like a medium speed for about 6 minutes. And we notice we haven't added the salt yet, because salt actually inhibits the growth of yeast. It just happens to make it taste good. So we'll add that later on. All right. This is about 6 minutes of kneading. It feels like dough. It's got a little bit of bounce to it. I like this texture for like a New York style dough that's like not super tacky. Why is it that restaurant plastic wrap is like the greatest thing in the world and home versions are like, oh yeah, we only stick to ourselves, we don't stick to anything else?
It's a rule in politics and in social circles.
You want to feel some dough? Appreciate it?
Why is it so tacky? I'm just kidding.
And then I'm just going to cover this just so that it doesn't get oxidized.
Tuck them in.
And then we're going to let this sit for about 20 minutes or so. Think about time and temperature are your two control knobs on fermentation.
Did you ever do that when you were a kid? You would call time and temperature? Did you ever do that?
Oh, right. Mine was movie phone.
Hello.
Welcome to movie phone.
Kids watching this don't know what movie phone is. Ask your parents who are under 40.
If you know the name of the movie you'd like to see, press 1. Corina is playing at the AMC 7 on the 3rd Street Promenade.
Corina.
Corina.
Starring Ray Liotta as a romantic lead with Whoopi Goldberg. Why not?
Anyway, so if you do a cold ferment, you build more complex flavor into the dough. But you can also just speed it up by letting it ferment at room temperature. It'll proof faster, it'll be ready to go faster. When you put it in the fridge, you slow build that up, and then it builds more complex flavor to it. Corina. Been about 20 minutes. See, we're getting some little bubblage here at the bottom. And now we can add the salt. Give it one more little 3-minute mix. So we started out with a medium-low speed, and now we're at like a medium speed for this next mixing. And this is going to be for like 3 minutes, and this kind of helps to develop the gluten a little more, get that salt really worked in and mixed. So now we're going to divide these into 3 dough balls. 500 and this feels nice. Now we're going to ball these up. It's like rolling a sock. Like if you stuff a sock into itself, you're basically curling the dough into itself. So the back of your hands are kind of doing this. And you're sort of almost like pulling it out and around and then into the middle and then pinching it on the inside. And what you want is like a nice round, so almost have this little bit of like stretched, even shine to it on the outside. And then you want to basically kind of twist the bottom, and you don't want to have any big air pockets in it, essentially. And then, look at that, a dough ball. And lay them right there. And then repeat. Bada bing. Sometimes you can also brush a little oil on the top. And that's just in case if it rises enough to hit the lid, you don't want it to stick. They go in the fridge, that stops the fermentation, and then that's it. We made pizza dough. Let's take a look, shall we? So our dough has grown. Nice little bounce to it. We're gonna take a dough out, we're gonna shape it into these pans. You can also just use a basic everyday at-home sheet pan. They're about the same size, but these are Lloyd pans. Lloyd pans, not a sponsor, but makers of, I think, the best pizza pans I've come across. One of the cool things about grandma-style pizza is that you are shaping with oil rather than with flour. So you want to shape this pizza to be roughly the size of this pan. It's going to fill in, hopefully, and you'll stretch it again as it goes. But this way you can kind of see as a reference next to you if you have the counter space to do it that way. And a little oil right on the counter. Remember which side's your top, which is your bottom. See the bottom has these kind of like more webbing on it, and the top is smooth. So that's how you kind of remember your top's your top, your bottom's your bottom. It does tend to bake better when it's going the right way. Little oil on our hands, and you want to be able to sort of move with gentle, confident fingers. You don't want to like smash it down and blow out any of the air that you've created in this process. So you're just kind of shaping it, and you want it to be as kind of even as possible. And then if your dough is not stretching the way you want it to, it's a little tight, let it warm up a little bit, give it a little more time. and then it's gonna relax in the pan and start to shape itself right there in that pan. This is a nice little dough we made, Ben. Then you just pick it up and lay it in the pan. And now we just take our lid, put it on, and we'll just let it hang out until it starts to look kind of bubbly and proofy. In the meantime, let's make some sauce. Let's make some sauce. Here's the sort of classic way to do sauce. Now look, I'm using a gigantic can of tomatoes. This is one of my favorite tomatoes here in California called Alta Cucina. It's what we use at Prime Pizza, our pizzeria here in LA. And the reason I used Alta Cucina and I like them is they're a very high acid tomato. Pizza and a lot of cooking is about the balance of fat and acid. And so since cheese is fat, then you want a high acid tomato to help balance it out. I'm gonna take the tomatoes, let some of the juice drip out, and just kind of do it like this. And if you were making 3 big pizzas like this at home, you probably could get away with, depending on how saucy you like your pizza, 1 to 2 regular cans of tomatoes. This is probably plenty. That's probably about 2 cans worth. If you're making pizza in a New York pizzeria, you're at least at like 550, maybe into the 6s. So your home oven, you want it to go as high as you can. What I want is like a pretty well crushed by hand tomato. And if you get any like big, root ends that are a little tough or whatever, you could always take those out if you want. And then because this is a raw sauce, I'm gonna use fine sea salt just because it's gonna distribute a little more quickly. So I'm just gonna kind of sprinkle a little salt in there, do a little black pepper, a little pinch of Greek oregano. Let's take like 2 decent sized garlic cloves. Do you want to tell the people about our second date?
Yeah, our second date. I know you thought it was a Trump hat. It's not. People are allowed to wear red hats. You were like, what kind of food do you want? And I did something no woman has ever done. I actually knew what I wanted to eat. Never to be repeated. And I said, hazmat pizza. And so I was like, let's buy the things to make pizza. Because at the very least, it'll be a shitty pizza, but it'll be cute. And I can put sauce on your nose. And so he's like, check this out. And we went to Prime Pizza. Click here.
Not a sponsor.
But and he pulled in the back of Prime Pizza, like in the dirty alley on Fairfax. And I was like, are we going to pawn my watch? Like, what are we doing back here? And then he went inside and he got all these ingredients. And he made a professional pizza at my house. And I was like, do you want to go to free shows at the Comedy Store forever? Because that's what I have to offer.
And I said yes. And now we have a baby.
Yeah.
All right. So,
okay.
All right. So now, kind of look at this texture of sauce. It's kind of a nice... It's chunky, it's not too watery, so our sauce is done. The first pie we're making is gonna be a grated mozzarella. Now obviously, if you don't have a restaurant to go to, you won't be buying these giant blocks. You can probably get them at Costco or whatever, but just buying a nice low moisture mozzarella for this style of pizza. You can use fresh mozzarella for this. I think fresh mozzarella is really, it has a high water content, so you really wanna be careful making this style of pizza because it can become very soupy. A larger grate on your cheese for mozzarella will melt a little more efficiently. Free cheese. So the first pie we're gonna do with grated cheese, and then our next ones we're gonna do with sliced cheese. Now sliced cheese is a giant pain in the ass. This is a scenario in which it might actually be good to buy a pre-sliced cheese. And the thicker you make it, the way more overly cheesy your pizza is gonna be. When you slice it by hand, it ends up being a lot more cheese than you're probably intending to put on because you have to end up slicing it so thick to get it to do what you want. I'm getting a little better at this now. All right, let's see how dough number 1 is looking now. Looking pretty snazzy. So we're gonna do the sort of the classic style, sprinkle your cheese over the whole thing. And I always like to get the edges first in a pan pizza because those you want in there because it makes it a little kind of those crispy corners that you kind of like. I'm just kind of eyeballing it. I'm going a little heavier on cheese because my wife likes a lot of cheese. Then we'll do dollops of tomato sauce, just Picassoing our pizza. Picasso, the pizza maker, not the artist. Jack Picasso. Some people believe in putting basil on before. Some people say to do it after. I kind of like a little bit of both, to be honest. All right, pizza goes in. The thing to think about now is what you want is that perfect balance of a melted, slightly golden brown top and a crispy bottom, ideally. So the trick to that in a home oven that I've discovered, if your top is looking ready and your bottom is not, you can move the entire pan down to the floor of the oven, like literally on the floor of the oven. If you have an electric coil oven, you can't do that, obviously. And then you can get that direct heat contact on the bottom, and theoretically, fingers crossed, you will get a nice blackened, golden brown, crispy bottom pizza. Give it a little spin.
So good.
Yeah, and look at that. See the little cheesy edges you get by putting the cheese on the edge? So now we want to check the bottom. And if the bottom is not quite where we want it, the top is looking fucking beautiful. Whew, I think we're actually kind of perfect. Little fresh Parmigiano Reggiano cheese. A little more fresh olive oil. Maybe some more fresh basil right on top. Dear, look at this is all I made.
It's so good.
Double that bite.
Ooh! The tomato's so good. I'm not a big tomato person.
No, but you don't like a white pie.
I don't like a white pie. You need tomatoes. A white pie is so weird. You heard me.
That crunch right in my mouth.
That was a good crunch.
So when we were putting that cheese on the edge of the pizza, when we were shaping it, that's what gives you these little cheesy crust waves. One more?
No, so good. Someone's gonna get pizza milk.
For this one, we're gonna do an L&B Spumoni Garden style upside down. I'm kind of pressing up the edges a little bit to build an extra lip. And that is gonna be to make a little extra sauce boat. I'm gonna take the cheese just like before with some nice coverage. We're just gonna put this in the oven just like this. And only for like 90 seconds. What we're doing is just barely melting the cheese so it spreads across. Then we'll take it out and then we'll put our sauce across the top. So you get this pure seal between the dough and the sauce. You can make a saucier pizza because it's not going to dry out the crust because we have a layer of cheese protection. Now, in you go. Same principle as before, second verse, same as the first. And this one seemed like it would have way too much sauce and way too much cheese, and yet the bottom fucking looks great. This is the L&B Spumoni Garden style upside down. I think it does a cool thing because it keeps, the cheese gets like extra kind of melty and stretchy and cool. And it's a saucier pizza, which I kind of like too.
It's saucy. I was in my office scrolling through the news drinking coffee. And so this is like a nauseating thing to think about eating, but then when I took a bite, all was okay. Not on the news, but I love that. Because what you really want in life is hot cheese on bread, then that's what you get. And then the little tomato blaster. Yep. Ooh! Upside down for the win.
You like that better than the first one?
Different style of dance.
Will you take a bite of one more pizza in a few minutes? Mm-hmm. Okay. That one's the hardest.
I have to. Look at this tiny dog.
This is the Prince Street / Kenji Lopez / Prime Pizza inspired spicy pep. So really what we're doing is laying all that sliced cheese down that we did. And this guy is going to be taking on a lot of stuff. A lot of fat from the pepperoni, a lot of cheese, a lot of sauce, a lot of chilies. This is like the blow your face off with flavor pizza. Spread this on. And we're just gonna spread all this stuff around. I'm gonna go Calabrian chilies next, because then I'll let the pepperoni go on top. And I like Calabrian chilies because they're kind of a fruitier chili. They're more like floral and bright, and I think they really balance well with a tomato sauce. And then like you're dealing cards. Just a wholly unreasonable YouTube show quantity of pepperoni. And then put some Parmesan on top to get it nice and caramelized. Not a diet pizza, not for the faint of heart, not for the literal faint of heart, because they will have a heart attack. Let's put her in, folks. One thing when you're making pizza or barbecue, to quote Kevin Bloodsoe, if you're looking, you ain't cooking. If you're opening the door, opening the smoker, all you're doing is letting heat out and messing up your cook. Check it as little as possible, and that's the secret. I need to get a little chair for down here. I think we're ready, boys.
Oh.
Welcome to Pizzeria Gluten, where the A is in parentheses.
What is that?
It's like gluten.
Oh my god, I was like, pizza. Oh. It's great.
But like one slice
Oh my God.
is a full meal.
We call it the assassin. One bite, one slice, one bite, that's awful. It's poison.
It's very good.
You have your friends over to watch a movie or like marathon every episode of Don't Panic Pantry, and you make this in the oven? Holy shit.
So, how do you compare?
I'm physically nauseous and I'm still eating.
How do you compare these three pizzas?
I don't. I let each one shine. This one's substantial. You want to eat one piece, be done. This is a great pizza, you're on the go.
But also surprisingly bright for how heavy it is, because there's a lot of sauce, and there's the Calabrian chilies are fruity.
You took the words right out of my full mouth. I like the upside down one. You get the cheese on bread contact. So it's like a cheesy toast. And this is just an outstanding pizza with delicious tomatoes. You should make all three at home. Let us know.
What are you doing?
I'm sorry. I'm just ripping a piece of crust off. When something's really good, your hand starts to wander and you just start picking things up. That's really good.
And now, I am going to fall asleep.
We take a group nap. Ben,
Group
turn
nap.
off the camera. It's group nap time.
Brent, leave the camera on. It's group nap time.
Oh, wait. And remember, spicy times. Tasty times.
Go for tasty measures.
Get off me.
We're only married on camera.